So this is a really cool, really easy way to understand meditation. So anything that you're aware of, there is space between you and it. Right? So, very obviously, like, oh, there's a trash can. The only reason I'm able to see that trash can or be cognizant of it is because of the space between myself and the trash can. And so you can notice this with your thoughts. So any thought that you might have, like it could be a good thought or it could be a bad thought. It could be like a cosmic thought, a true thought, a false thought. Anything that you're having, you have this thought. When people say just observe the thoughts or sort of quote unquote detach from the thoughts, as when you look at the thought, you actually are detached from the thought, similar to being in water and sinking down and looking up from underneath and seeing the thought. And so that puts you in this orientation to where if you're not observing the thoughts, you're actually part of the thought. It's like that at that point you're at the surface and you're participating in whatever wave goes by. When you're on the surface, you just express that wave. Right? And so these waves, these events are thoughts. And so when you're not observing it, you're up there, you're in it, and so that's where you're interacting. The instant that you start to observe the thoughts, the only position from which you can observe is one where you're not at the surface anymore. You're not part of the surface. You have to actually get below or above the surface. Right? You could say that's probably the difference between psychedelics and meditation, is that the psychedelics lift you up above the surface, and then the meditation or the being drops you down into the water. And so that position, either way, detached from the surface, is what gives you that space. And when you're doing this with thought, it's like what's between you and a thought. And it's more you. And right, where are you looking at the thought from? There's no one down there underneath the surface looking up. It's you identify with the space. You realize that the space is the looking. How I always say water is awareness. Like, this is the nature of water. This is the only thing. And there's different things happening on the surface, and the water is moving in different ways. There's different currents, there's different cycles, there's different wave patterns, there's different tide patterns. Like, all that's definitely there in the awareness. The awareness is doing all that, but ultimately it's only this one system of awareness, which is the bulk water itself, and then the thoughts, which is all the activity that the surface of the water could ever do. So any thought you could ever have, or any wave pattern that could ever manifest itself on the surface of the medium, the surface of the water, that's any experience you could ever possibly have. Any thought you could ever possibly have. And the instant that you take the orientation of I am aware of it, you are the awareness. And so if you notice this, nothing changes, because it's how is this happening right now? It's this. And you already knew it, because how else could it be happening? Like, if it wasn't happening, how could it be happening? And how could have anything ever happened if it wasn't happening then? So noticing this does not take on the characteristic of there is a new pattern there that I see. There is a new thought that I'm having, or even a new thought I'm not having. Like, the awareness is still. Nothing's going on at the surface. Even if nothing's going on at the surface, you're still attached to it, you're still just participating in that. There's just nothing going on at the surface. It doesn't matter. But the instant, so this is why nobody ever exactly masters this or anything else, Because what could ever possibly happen other than they're having different thoughts, or the awareness is doing different things? But there's still like the attachment, whatever that thing is. Like if it's a really good thing, then there's that attachment to it again, and you become part of the surface. And when you're just part of the surface expressing whatever energy is there, you're what people call dreaming, or not awake, or it's the unenlightened state, or the samsara. Because it's cycling, and so if you're just participating in the surface, you're just going to cycle, just like the surface is, forever. And people describe that as suffering because like they're the awareness, this infinite potential, this infinite freedom, this everything else, and then you feel forced to be just doing or expressing whatever's going on right there in that moment. So the cycling is perceived of as suffering if you're identified with the surface. And so if you have these deep ideas, this is the other thing. Is like, let's say you have this big, deep, super accurate conception of God. If you use that as a stepping off point, or as an identity, or an object of meditation, and you try and actually observe the space between you and that thing, the space between you and that thing, it's a very deep idea. Like a very deep idea is very big, and so to see it, you have to go very deep so that your field of vision is wide enough to like take in that much surface at the same time. These are patterns that are so large we could call them gods, deities, principalities, right? These are big structures in awareness. And so you have to be very deep to see it. And if you're very deep, you can't breathe, or if you're doing some technique like my snorkel thing, the pressure is immense, and so the breath drops to almost zero. You can use your nose as a snorkel to go deep. And so it becomes impossible to breathe. So if you're actually doing the meditation with those things, it is so difficult that you can't breathe. And if you do breathe, it means that you're not actually in it. You're just in the thought thing. And then the water, or the awareness, is fractal. So any giant pattern that you can see on a huge cosmic scale, you can see the exact same pattern like right there. And then that doesn't have to be impossibly deep. But if you're stuck to the surface, your perspective is kind of limited of like, what about the water could you see if you were stuck to the surface? Imagine that. You can see kind of far, like if you're just out there treading water. But if you rise up a little bit or drop way down, all of a sudden you're seeing way more surface. And when people do that, it's called insight. You know, they get big ideas. How did you know that? It's like, oh, I saw it all at once. Like, how did you invent that? How did you see DNA? How did you come up with that physical theory? People drop down into awareness, or they rise up above it by getting high, and they see the whole pattern all at once. And it's beyond language, because language is only like this much pattern. And if you drop into awareness, you're seeing something that's larger than language. Like language is only this big. And you can figure this out while you're by yourself. It's really easier, like while you're driving in the car to work. But the instant like somebody's being an asshole or something, you attach to that. Like like if something's dissatisfactory to you, the only way it's dissatisfactory to you is if you re-identify with the character of the surface right there, and that pulls you back into attachment, where you're just expressing the surface. So if you're around things that you're attached to, like yourself, and if you're not attached to yourself, maybe you're attached to like, other people, like your kids or your parents, or, the opposite political party or whatever, and then you're attached to that. And so then when you're around those things, the samsara, or the awareness, or the identification with the space, with the presence, goes away. And so super shallow, super simple ideas are often like best for kind of learning this thing, because you want to be able to have something to where you have orientation and reference to. It's deep enough that you can actually go underneath it, but not so deep that it makes it impossible to breathe, or anything like that.